Welcome back to part 2 of Glitchless Lullaby Skip. If you made it this far, that's not too bad. This is where the fun really begins, because now we have a third snowball to deal with, and we have to time our roll to it, basically. But first off, let's get into position. Well, let me get into the audio cues first, actually. So, the audio cue is very funny, to be fair, but it is repeatable in my opinion. So if you notice, I have a bow out in addition to this. That's intentional. What I like to do over in this spot to get up here, first of all, you can see my visual cue. That is this one, there we go. Good enough. See this diagonal right here? There's that one, there's another diagonal blank line there, another one there, gray, whatever color you want. You want the first one, the big one right here. That is your visual cue. Specifically, you want to aim for where it meets the top of the ramp. Alright, simple enough. Now what I mean by aim is literally target here, pull bow, and you're going to backflip during part of the wind. Now the wind isn't exactly the nicest, consistent thing in the world. Sometimes it blows harder than other times. That's just how it works. So you're gonna want to learn how exactly that works. Usually, I think there are like 2 points where it like crests, it feels like, for whatever reason, slightly like in the middle, and then towards the very end like before. That's just personal opinion. That might not be accurate. That's just based off of what seemed to be successful. And the reason I pull bow specifically is if you don't have it, occasionally the camera is going to be funny. You get some camera jank where the camera just goes off into the side. Using the bow, this might be a placebo effect, but it seems to work consistently. It just takes away that whatever jank is going on because bow messes with the camera. It's first person item when targeting. So, well, I guess that's third person item then while targeting, but whatever. It makes things consistent and lines everything up just right for you. Alright, now for the audio cue that I was going to get into. That's to get into position. So, audio cue is going to be a little funny if you are using mono audio and you do not have 2 outputs. So I'm going to give you a quick strat in that case, otherwise you can skip ahead. It can sometimes help if you do a quick setup like this. It's 3 ESS turns to the left after targeting. Was it 1541? Let me double check. Yeah. And then doing a C up. And sometimes that will be able to help you isolate the audio a little bit. I think ideally what you would do, as much as it sounds horrible, and then it affects the wind itself, being able to hear it sometimes, it's gonna be literally putting it in stereo and using the left side of the audio here. As annoying as that is, because it's gonna isolate the wind, it's gonna quiet that down, and then you'll be able to hear the snowball through the left side pretty clearly with this. But anyways, hopefully you have either earbuds, which is awesome, or stereo, in which case you can usually hear it pretty well, especially with earbuds from this spot right here. You just have to pay attention to your left side or left ear, whatever the case is. Or pull out your right audio if you're on stereo, your red cord. I would recommend doing that, at least for this little bit, because you have a little bit of time to get ready for when you have to go, unless you try to go for it. Now for the audio cue. It is when the snowball... What we're listening for is the snowball to break in our left ear, like it just did. Wait a wind cycle, and then go on the next wind cycle. There are instances that exist where you can hear the snowball break and go on the next wind cycle. I'll let you experiment with that. I don't want to recommend something that's going to be turned out to be bad, just because there's technically a bit of RNG. I do think it would be consistent for what it's worth, but I don't want to get into that part right now. Just the doing it part. So, again, we're going to be listening for the snowball to break like it does there, and just for a little bit of observancy and sake, we just heard that click means that the snowball just dropped if you heard it. Usually there are about 3.5 to 4.5 wind cycles between each time the snowball breaks and breaks again. it all depends on how long the wind takes. The snowball itself is on a very completely consistent cycle. The wind is the only thing that's RNG in this case, and it's not RNG enough to the point that we can't trust it. It's very trustable with this. I don't think there's a single case where I got following this pattern where I got zucked by this, or clobbered by the snowball, whatever. So just one more time. Snowball breaks. Alright, so this is the first wind cycle after it went, and so the next one is coming up. That's the wind cycle that we want to climb up. Now, the climbing, I haven't fully worked out a visual cue, or not a visual cue, an audio cue. It's kind of like the first half second of the wind starting. It's when the wind starts to really shows up on the screen, and right before it gets fully dark, I think. It's lenient enough that you don't need to know a complete visual cue or audio cue. It's going to be hard anyways because it fluctuates so much in both cases. So as long as you get approximately there, and the goal is to basically get full speed, and if you can get a good initial setup, that's going to affect whether or not you can make it to the next wind cycle. If it is a very early wind, usually you can make it sometimes with any other wind, even if it's a sloppy initial setup, but I do recommend practicing the initial setup. It's not that hard, it's just that pause buffering is a little derpy in this map. Speaking of, from this point forward, I highly recommend using KZ pause buffering. I want you to be able to see and understand all the frames that are going on, that are coming up, just because the more you can visualize this trick in your head, the more you see it, the more you can quote-unquote experience it as you're doing it, and you're not missing frames, the more you're going to be able to understand it, in my opinion. Otherwise, if you lack that understanding, then we're in monologue time right now. If you lack that understanding, it's going to be very difficult to go for this trick. This is not a gung-ho trick. Gung-ho, you go for it. This is a very chess type of trick, if that makes sense. Logic-based trick. It is very you mess up one thing, then it will probably throw everything else off. Not like everything, but you want to follow it as closely as possible to the base examples, which shouldn't be too hard. It's just pause buffering is sometimes therapy on this map, in my opinion. Maybe that's KZ, maybe that's me being drunk, I don't know. But if you think about this as a trick that you need to understand more than it is a trick that you need to just go for, then you're in the right frame of mind. This is not a trick that you just randomly get sometimes. You have to intentionally get it. Alright, rant over. So, we're gonna wait for the wind to just barely start, and right after it starts, before the screen gets completely filled up with snow, we're gonna go. I am so sorry, I just realized it's a little dark, not necessarily on the screen, but in a run it's gonna be closer to 12 o'clock, I think is gonna be. I don't know for sure, so I'm gonna change that real quick to 12 o'clock. Zuna, correct me to a better time if you want me to. Okay, alright, there we go. The wind just started, and you can see it completely changes the visibility here. It's just bright as heck, basically. Which isn't a big issue, it's just different, that's all. My save states are all on 6 o'clock-ish time, so I'm gonna have to deal with that later. Sorry. Okay. So about there was a good time. Now, the frame that I want is the third frame after Link starts standing up with the shield, and you can see his bow clearly in his right hand. Or, not, it's obfuscated, it's behind the shield, but that's the second frame there. I kind of quickly KZ pause buffered, but it's going to be the third frame here that we want. I am so sorry. I assumed I had a different frame. Alright, so this is frame 2, and that's frame 3. The easiest tell if you're on the right frame or not is the bow down here. If you can see the bow down here, bottom right of Link's shield, then you're on the right frame. The next frame is very obviously going to be different. It's going to be when Link starts to get blown, basically, in the opposite direction. I do often... wrong button, sorry. I do often hold down during this whole thing. It doesn't really matter, but that way, I just hold it because you do need to hold down for the next part. Anyways, you get this frame. This is the frame you want. Good luck pause buffering it. It gets easier as you do it, but those 2 frames before it are similar enough that you might want to practice and be able to immediately notice it. Alright, put on Goron mask on this frame. Now, I'm still holding down. That's of course going to cancel the rest of the animation after skipping it with A or B or whatever for the first part of the cutscene. Then you got the second cutscene. So, I'm still holding down, which means I'm going to run down basically. And I'm going to do that for a couple frames. 2, 3, 4. To this frame specifically. Ooh, it looks like I climbed a little early. So, this is a very obvious frame. It's the first frame where he starts really running. His hands are up and everything. The next frame and the frame after should work, but if you climbed any later, I think it's hard to tell sometimes. Case in point, you have several frames to work with. You can work with them. I look at up here specifically to where this seam between the floor and the wall meets Link's gauntlet up here. So the further forward that you are, the more the seam is going to be in line with the back of his hand, the back of his arm. The more backward you are, which means that you climbed it earlier versus later. Yeah, it's just how much the wind takes you, how fast the wind is going by that point, if I recall correctly. Then the seam is going to fall further down in the sand. This, I would say, is too far. You want the gauntlet, or you want the seam to fall like in the middle of the gauntlet, right here about. You don't want it any further down, otherwise that means you climb too early, and then by the time you start rolling, which is this frame, and then, you know, the frames after, he's probably going to fall off. We can find out, but I'm pretty sure he's going to fall off. On this frame, I hold A and left. A to roll and left to go straight left. Now, the left input, I do curve very quickly to up left, right after he starts turning. There are some other cases where I don't do that, like if he's looking like he's going to fall off, like this case. So instead, what I'm going to do, this is a special case that I'm starting on, I'm sorry about that. I'm going to hold down and then curve it to up left. That's to get around when we get blown over to this part here. If we go full down left, he's going to go off sooner. But if we just hold down, then we have just a bit more to work with. And that's ideal. Yeah. So that medium part is the cutoff where I would hold down specifically. Did I say left earlier? I'm sorry if I did. Down, because sometimes with the camera angle, he's going to fall off even if you do that. Okay, let's try to get a better example this time. Snowball just broke. That's the first one after. Now we want the second one after. Okay, that looked a little late, but it should work. Goron mask. First roll frame. Okay, so here we're further up, which means that we climbed a little later, like I thought. But this should still be plenty of... It's gonna be fine. You only have to worry if you're not very blown that far at all. That means that the wind's about to end. So what's gonna happen next, when I hold specifically left and A in this case, because I'm clear, I don't have to worry about being blown off backwards, is I'm gonna go flying immediately. I immediately get full speed. You don't have to do ESS roll, you don't have to do quick start, whatever you want to call it. You immediately start rolling very quickly. That's because the wind was blowing by the time that we were going. Now, had you climbed any later, I think up to, I don't know, starting 2 frames after that point maybe, something like that is what it feels like, then the wind wouldn't have been blowing as much as we needed it to by the time we were rolling, and specifically after that run that we had, and then you're just not going to get this full speed. You're going to have to start with a slow speed, and at that point I would highly recommend you just restart the whole, that part of it where you backflip up and everything. But anyways, I did hold up left a little late, but this should be fine. We're going to be holding up left more And we're going to be going for... I'm going a little slow here just to show the angle off, basically. Alright, so you see that corner over there? We're aiming for that corner. That is to make it consistent. The corner is blocking it, but basically would be right here behind Goron, like where this meets this, generally. And then that's going to set us up for consistent cases for the wind. Now for understanding. Monologue time again, oh boy. Can you understand it? Druck sucks. Late at night. So, at this point, the wind is going to blow at some kind of RNG point. If you do a good initial setup, like I believe I did, even though the up left was a little derpy. If you did a good initial setup, then you will be able to make it up the whole rest of the ramp, no matter what wind RNG you get. It could be the earliest freaking wind ever. Thankfully, I was able to make sure with save states that you can still make it up. And we have strategies for, as a strategy for most, if not all cases. I think it's basically all cases at this point. There are approximately 5 general cases. There might be a 6th one, but I think it's not really, it's close enough. The 2 surrounding cases between it are just way too similar that it shouldn't be an issue in any case, I think. Anyways, data integrity aside, the longer that the wind postpones itself, the further out the ramp we're going to get. Sometimes that seems like it's a good thing. Sometimes it's going to seem like it's going to make some weird cases, but they're easy to grasp once you get a handle on them all. So, regardless of what first one we're going to get, we're going to try to go for it. I don't know if I want to really show that one if it's out of cycle. I wanted to show these off in order of earliest to latest, just to give you some kind of, I don't know about understanding, but like some kind of order to cling to, basically, for the knowing all the cases. But anyways, let's find out what case we get and see if I can explain myself clearly when I say what's early and what's late, what's medium, what's early, medium, and what's medium late. Those are the 5 cases. Now, regardless of what the wind cycle actually is, it's more so that the cycles line up with where exactly Link is on the ground. So it's more formed to like where exactly you are. It's not really like formed to, you don't have to remember how long it took the wind to cycle through. That's why if you're late, sometimes it still works. You just have to you just assume that you had a late wind, basically is what it is. It's not really a late wind, it's just that that's where you ended up. That's what they're based on. That's what I call them. It's just late wind, early wind, whatever the case is. Early wind in that case, not late wind. Okay, monologue over. So about here, maybe a little further up, is what I would call the early case. Around here would be the medium case. I think, did the wind just start blowing me? Even though I didn't start. Yeah, it did. Alright, so we have about a medium early case. If you're having a little difficulty telling here, I do too sometimes. What I think is better to do is once you know when the wind is starting, in an RTA setting, I wouldn't really be pause buffering this. Maybe a little small strip just to make sure if I get an early wind I can react in time. If I had a bad setup, initial setup. But I would be doing what I like to call like stutter pauses, where you let a couple of frames pass between each pause until you know exactly what you need to do. Then when you know what you need to do, you act on it, of course. So, right now we're being blown by the wind, so I'm going to be holding up left in A, of course. And we're going to keep doing that. So as you can see, I am just barely on this thing still, which would imply that this is actually an early case. So I was a little early when I tried to say that there was an early case there. This actually works pretty well because this is the earliest case, of course, so I'm just going to keep going with this one. This is one of the special cases. It's one of the most... There are 2 cases. It's very early wind, this one, and the very late wind. That are the most special and unique cases that we had to do special things for just to make them easy RTA viable. So this first one, it's gonna seem jank and scary at first, but if you trust me, it's not gonna seem so scary and frustrating at all. We're going to progress one more frame with up left A, and that is to ensure that when we do a transition, which is what I'm going to show you next, different Goron tech, I don't know if it's known or not, just something I noticed personally. The scary part is that we're going to be going with the wind, is what it seems for a little bit. Like so. First off, for the transition, I'm going to explain. The transition is basically, we were just holding up and left and A at the same time because we were rolling to the up left, of course. We're going to now release the A button, but we're going to hold up right. Not for one frame, but 2 frames. We want this frame specifically. Now, this frame is going to allow us to get an immediate fast roll again with what we had before. If you are early, then you will not get an angle change. If you are late, then you will not be able to continue your quick speed. You won't be able to get an automatic guaranteed quick start. You will have to make your own quick start, and at that point, especially with an early wind, I can no longer guarantee that you're going to make it up. By the way, real quick while we're at this stopping point, you can see the snowball down there. Right there. So that means that when we timed it, you know, it was because we were waiting for it to fall down by the time we were at this point. And if you're going for an earlier case, I think it might have been possible. It would have been higher up. I'm not sure if an earlier case would have been fine. In this one. Actually, yeah, I don't think it was fine. It was a different case. It was not the one I was thinking of, sorry. But anyways, at this point we're going to input the A button. On this frame specifically, we had 2 inputs where we did not hold A while we were angle changing, and now we're going to input A on this one while also holding upright. And voila. Now the wind is about to stop blowing, I guess. The wind is about to stop blowing. We had an early wind cycle, which means that it's going to stop by the point, it's around here basically, but it's going to be at, the further link goes is what I'm thinking about. It's going to be at the earliest point out of all the winds basically. Which means eventually we're going to be normally Goron rolling. Okay, so right now we're already normally Goron rolling. Sometimes it looks like he's not, but he might as well be. The wind is just barely pushing him. So holding upright here sometimes can be a little jank. At this point you're basically, I wouldn't say on your own, it's just you have to use your own Goron rolling knowledge to make it up the rest of the ramp. You just have to make sure you make it up on this skinny thing. Just like you do when you're, well, I guess you don't have spike roll, so I can't say normally. But if you have to pause buffer this section, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. A lot of people are probably going to have to pause buffer this section, or it's something close to it when they're first starting out. That's just how it's going to work. Just make sure that whatever you do, you don't fall off like I'm about to. And if you catch yourself falling off, do your best to not load a save state. That sucks. Not let a save state for 1 if you're practicing. 2, when you're at that point, feel free to take it slow. Even just pause buffer it. Because it is very easy to fall down, even when the wind's not blowing. The wind was not blowing, a lot of times when I was doing my 10 out of 10s attempts, it was so easy to fall down, and that just killed so many attempts alongside not being able to pause buffer. But that was the biggest thing that killed so many of my attempts. That and derping setups, I just wasn't paying enough attention to what wind cycle I got. But it's very easy to fall off, and I do recommend practicing that in particular. There are some wind cycle setups, shall we say, wind cycle patterns that it's just so easy. You just have to hold right basically and you make it in. Sometimes you have to swap the upright, but it's still so easy. Early wind is one of those cases where it's very difficult, and then very late wind is another special case where it's difficult. The camera is just it does not play nice. And sometimes what seems like upright would work. Upright goes much more forward. Sorry if this seems like all sporadic and everything, but there's just so much going on with this trick. Yeah, there's no other way to explain everything without being sporadic, I feel like. Especially not until we get the first, at least one full concrete one down. Let me just get back up there. You can try gainering this, but usually the gainer doesn't quite work. Nice. This is, oh, I'm too far to the left. So that was a case where you had to be a specific part of the wind. The gainering doesn't quite work. The snowball just broke. So this is the first one after. Because the snow really likes to make Link sink. It can, but you have to roll ahead of time or something, and it just gets derpy after that. Okay, so just like before, in a run, I would just pause stutter this is what I like to do. Or when I'm doing KZ, I just swap between up and down real quick. This is a later case. Here I would pause buffer it just so I know what wind I get exactly. This is a very, very, very late wind. I could not get this in a safe state. Oh, no, it started already. I was wondering. Unfortunately, sometimes... No, sometimes I'm just numb. It's because I don't have my right earbud in. Yeah, the wind already started, I just didn't hear it. Okay, well anyways. Let me just get back up to that point so I can explain the rest of the trick. That sucks. I was a frame early. I thought I might have wanted to go another one. I've been experimenting with going earlier on that one just to make it safer. Easier, I should say, but it doesn't work out that well. There it is. I have way too much experimentation on my hands in this area. It throws off so much. I've retained a lot of bad muscle memory sometimes. I'm gonna take it very easy right now. Oh yeah, sometimes if you're having difficulty finding what time the wind is starting, like if you don't have an earbud in your ear, you just look at when the snow kind of spurs around Link. Alright, so this is a late case. Again. There we go, that's what I was going for. Alright, so now I'm holding upright. I should do a couple more right inputs first. Now I should do upright. And that's how you make it up. Kappa. So, I'm not going to get into all the cases yet. I just want to get a full, show you the whole thing first. So, at this point, you're going to stop Goron rolling, walk up. What that's going to do is, one, it's going to let the wind cast go a little bit. It's not necessarily necessary. What I do like is that this is causing Link to go to the right against this wall here. And then that's going to make timing this a lot easier, whether you decide to pause buffer it or not. I would probably recommend pause buffering it at first, but I'm sure a lot of runners will find that this is usually pretty safe to do unbuffered. All you're going to do is wait till you're close to the point that this wall... Oh, that is so hard to see. Yeah, I can see it much more clearly on my TV, but not in OBS. That is unfortunate. Let me go ahead and try to increase the sharpness. Bad strats. Where are the windows at? Behind, of course. Okay, let's see here. Sharpness did squat all. Put that back down to 16. Get it up. Ah, There we go. Okay. Turning up the contrast helped. So now you can see what I can see. I guess I'll have to deal with that camera. So, where this edge, ledge, whatever you want to call this thing, meets, this is the wall here basically. This is not a wall. This is a slope that you can grab. That's the goal here. That's like the video if you saw it. Meets here. So there's a corner right here. It's a little hard to see on a smaller screen. It's going to be a lot easier to see on your TV, especially if you look at where the lines look, if you spread your vision out, if that makes sense. So basically, once Goron Link gets a little closer to that ledge, I wouldn't say much more. I would take the mask off and then just literally hold nothing. Not shield specifically, not anything. Shield would be bad. Usually that guarantees falling for some reason, which is unfortunate, but don't shield, don't do anything. I'm gonna do one more frame just to be certain. The closer you are, generally the better. Just don't get too close because you will fall off and you will not be able to take your Goron mask off, and that would be bad. And sometimes it can be an issue just being too close. Sometimes Link won't grab the ledge, but generally that isn't an issue if you're just a little spaced out. So anyways, just take the mask off, skip the cutscene, press nothing, press definitely not shield, do not give yourself any momentum with running, and you should, at least in, I would say, 49 cases out of 50, probably, it sounds about right to me, if not more, you will grab this ledge. You may not grab it in the same spot, but you will grab this ledge. Which is great, because now we can let the wind reset itself, which is awesome. But now we have an issue. When do we climb? It's very simple. I refer you to a very good audio cue. You want to listen for when the wind does its little howl. So, howl, if that makes sense. Howl, and right as it reaches the bottom, that's when you want to input the climb, or right after. Usually it's much better. So right now is when I would do it, for example. Right as it descendos, what's the term? Decrescendos, something. Right after that point where it hits rock bottom. So that looks like this. Or sounds like that, I guess. Then I just mash Goron. And then at this point, this is another tricky spot where it's easy to fall off at. You have to get a quick start and then get into the load zone. That's all you gotta do, but it can be a little stressful. And if you mess up the quick start, or if somehow the wind decides it starts ungodly early or something, then you have to react to it. Then you basically have to get into position again, take the Goron mask off at a good time. Sometimes that can be difficult based off of the camera, but usually it is possible. And if you know you have a case where it's going to be difficult for you to realize it, snap to a direction, whatever you're doing, target immediately so that the camera gets locked, and then start walking back in that direction that I told you to. Basically towards the load zone is what it is, or away from the ledge. And that'll usually set you straight. Then you can retry. If you're floundering, it's easy to fall off. Absolutely. Just like any other part of this trick. But if you remain calm, the key, that is the biggest key for this trick. If you remain calm, keep your wits about you, you will probably make it. So anyways, you just want to walk. I usually hold down left. This is a camera angle that you will probably get very often if you get it first try. Down left, and then just roll it up to up left after you get your quick start. Or I guess I do it while I get my quick start. Okay, that was an instance in which the wind was really nice. That was really nice. It waited so long. But anyways, that is an example of what a lullaby skip looks like. Could you? Okay. I could have ground pounded, but whatever. Sometimes it'll seem like the wind goes really fast. You can usually still make it in time. I would recommend trying to go for the right side. My issue that time was I went in the left side. I often do that for whatever reason. I just try to hope I make it in. But if you specifically go for the right side, then you have less distance to travel. If I had gone on the right side, I would have said that. That was pretty good on my part. Anyways, if the wind decides you're not going to make it, you have to be absolutely careful not to be airborne for very long. So just stop Goron rolling as soon as you hear it, basically. Goron rolling in general while the wind is blowing there is usually a bad idea because the camera angle can change so quickly and so sporadically that you will possibly either bonk yourself off or roll right off. It is very easy to do. Walking is very much recommended, the drug strat, I guess, if you want to call it that. But anyways, that's how you do that part there. It's easier than it looks, but it's not free. It is what it is. Alright, so that is tutorial for the generic steps. Now we're going to go into these different cases. And these different cases are going to specifically affect the second wind cycle when you're up there, where the second snowball normally is, on up to where basically you were going to take Goron mask off. There's always a chance to make it. The RNG may not feel like that, but I have tested the RNG thoroughly, much to my demise. And here I am, still alive, and somehow I have some degree of sanity left, thankfully. Alright, let's get this over with. Let's go to 0. Yeah, make me feel better. Hey, so this is early case. This is like before. We want to make sure that we hold up left and A. And I completely forgot to explain the difference between this and not so early. So, like I said, very early and very late wind cases are very special cases, and they require very specific ways to reach the Goron ledge, Goron mask takeoff ledge grab spot. We are going to hold up in A, up left and A. Wait, is this really an early wind? I think when I was trying to get my save states earlier, this is one of the closest things that I got to it, but this is more of a medium, I think. Did I get the right one? Oh yeah, I was gonna do this, that's right. Okay, so I stuttered a little bit with when I held up left so that I got a little closer to the ledge. So my usual tell for whether or not it's early or like medium early is what I would call it. You can see my save states. Early, medium, late, is how close I am wrapping to this ledge here. If I'm wrapping really closely to this ledge, like right here, then I'm going to want to do early. And this case works with early, so I would consider this like the cutoff point between when you would want to do early and medium early, if that makes sense. Any further, and I would prefer you to do the next case that I will go into, which is medium early. So anyways, okay, now I have my early case, quote unquote. We're going to go one more up left A input. That's going to put us a little further up. Sometimes you can get away with that earlier frame, but other times you'll bonk off and it's very annoying. So just do it safely and go to this frame here, where you're a little further up, it's a little safer. Which it basically means that you have a little more space between Goron Link and the right side of the ledge, is what I'm going for. At this point, you're going to be holding upright, but release A for 2 frames to get that angle change. And you're going to be doing the angle change for all cases, so learn the angle change well. Buffering 2 frames is always fun in this area, Kappa. And then we're going to be holding upright in A. Now, this is the part where you're going to get creative with your Goron rolling. The wind is having very minimal little to minimal effect on you, if none at all. So you just have to pretend that the wind is basically not there. And then I would either stutter the wind, or pause stutter, like I called it, which is like I was doing, or if I was pausing, then I would just like let a couple of frames pass every time, basically. Or pause buffer it in general, or if you're really comfortable, you're a pro, you're Trev maybe, do it unbuffered, I guess. So, at that point, you're up to this point. One caveat about the wind that's really nice is 9 times out of 10, the wind will give you enough time to just barely get a spike roll. At the very least, just barely get a spike roll. And that's why this case is possible, because we're at this point, and we got spikes on the right side of the ramp specifically. Right side usually helps, because then you have a bit of leniency where if the wind were to start now, you could get in this position. Anyways, this is where you would release A. A caveat about spike rolling is that not everything is immediate. You have to wait 6 frames if you're in the middle of a spike roll that you've already had for several frames. But if you just started the spike roll, then usually you can end it in 2 frames, like so. So, very important to remember that 2 frames of spike rolling on this ramp is so much more preferable than 6 frames of spike rolling, because that's 4 frames of spike rolling difference, and you cover a lot of distance in 4 spike roll frames. A whole lot of different distance that you do not want to cover on this thing, and then like fall off or ramp off the side. That is no fun in this trick. Okay, so just like before, I want to see somebody walk in there. That's going to be so fun to see. But anyways, pause buffer to a good spot where you're just close to it, and then you're going to make it in just like before. Wait for the crescendo to finish up. Mash Goron mass. Quick start, go in. Quick note about save states: if you're on this version of KZ, or if this version of KZ gets released, exit before you load your save state. Otherwise, you will not get sound. It's very sad. Alright, so that's the early case. Now for early and medium. It's a little further up, as you can see. In this case, sometimes you can get away with just holding up and A. However, sometimes what I will do is... So generally with this, it's sometimes better to be closer to the right than the left. Not in all cases, but like I would aim for like the middle of the ramp at this point. In fact, that's our visual cue that we're going for. Once we're in the middle of the ramp, past that one corner on the bottom right that you're gonna see a lot. This is a frame after that I want. Wait, no, I'm so sorry. This is not medium case. This is medium early. So yeah, you want to be holding up, and then you do want to hold up left at some point, sometime around that corner. This would be a bit late, like here. That would be a really good instance. You don't want the middle of the ramp in this specific case. I'm so sorry for notes. You want it in the next case. At the end of this, I'm gonna go give a breeze through of all cases. So this is the frame that you want. On this frame, I want you to trust me, and I want you to hold right and A. Well, I want you to hold right for 2 frames without A, and then I want you to hold right with A. Now, this is a bit late, but in this case, you're gonna have to hold up left, or up right, I'm sorry, at some point, because otherwise this is gonna happen and you're gonna be sad. So you do have to pay attention for, not necessarily when the wind ends, but when you have to hold upright in order for Link to stay on the ramp. Did it just? Oh, it just got so quiet. That was scary. Okay, so again, looks like something like this. Nope, sorry. I should be pause buffering this. KZ pause buffering this. Okay, so I can hold up left now. Okay, one more frame. Alright, so again, the visual cue is when I'm to the left side, but only like by 1 frame past the middle after crossing. And then 2 frames of right with no A, and then right with A. And then at this point, I probably wouldn't hold right upright. I'd probably hold like upright, if that makes sense. And then I would make it through. Yeah, just like that. And then the rest of the trick I can show you real quick again. Ooh, so that was one where I stuttered. I didn't get a quick start the first time, but I did get a second chance. The wind was late enough, so that was nice. Okay, next up is medium. Medium is an interesting case. Because you're up so far and you're on the left side, you're really close to that corner, you're going to be holding upright. You're going to be doing this for the later cases as well, no matter, because if you don't, you're going to fall off, obviously. You want to hug the left side in this case. The wind's going to push you so much, usually, otherwise. Okay, so holding upright, but you don't want to hold upright too often, of course, because you're just going to go off and you're going to be sad. So you do have to transition to up left. What I normally do is I slowly, like, I guess I think about snapping the up and then snapping the up left. Kind of like that. Or I guess you can just do up or left if you wanted to. We can try that real quick. Oh, that's too quick. Alright, so for medium case, you want the middle of the ramp. Funny how that works out, isn't it? And then it's just like the previous case where you're gonna hold right for 2 frames without A and then hold right with A. Yeah, I was afraid of that. So that was a case where I held upright for too long. That's why I was afraid of that happening. It's jank to do from save states sometimes. It's usually a lot easier to do without save states, if that makes sense. Okay, so we're at the middle of the ramp. Like between the left side and the right side when I say middle of the ramp. Oh. So that was a case where I let my gut instincts override what I know. And this is why I tell you to trust me when I say this stuff. So I hit upright for just barely a couple frames, and that's all it took for, even though I just snapped back to right after like, I don't know, just a couple of frames of upright, he still fell off that left side of the ramp. So you have to like fight what you really want to do, which is stick to the ramp, and you have to trust that the wind's gonna push you, because it will, regardless of whether you expect it to or not. And you do not want this to happen in a run. Alright, so now we're at the middle of the ramp. We're just barely past that corner. That's like just below the camera right now. Right for 2 frames, right in A. This is definitely one that's good for pause stuttering. Then I go to hold up A, upright. This would be a good spot to hold upright, I think. I say that, but I knew it wasn't good. It was just like a frame late. You get kind of used to the frames after a while. That's way too far. I don't like this, but yeah. Even 1 frame late, and that can easily. Wait, did I hold upright? Yeah, I held upright. That's another case of me being stupid. Okay, there we go. That was the one where I had the upright input just right, and I was able to hold upright and go right into the safe spot, the safety net. If you really wanted to, if you wanted to really gung-ho risk it, you could try going up into the load zone without doing this catch, and sometimes it does work. The problem is if you get an early wind, like that time. But anyways, of course the rest of the trick is as the other ones, as follows. Bam, made it. And then there were 2. These last 2 are very similar, and they could actually be interchangeable to an extent. They're not bad at all. Medium late is... shoot, what's the pattern for medium late? Oh no, my memory. Uh-oh. Monka S. Give me a second here. I didn't write this stuff down. This is all mental notes. Jock notes. Were they just the same case? Is that what they were? Oh yeah, they were the same case. They were the same pattern. That's, yeah, they were the exact same pattern. Alright, so here's medium late. You can see my cue for when I can tell if it's medium late. Oh, and then medium. Medium is like when I just start to turn, like I was earlier. So I forgot to mention this, I think. Medium is like when I start to approach that corner there, where I have, oh yeah, I did mention it, where I have to start holding upright, otherwise I fall. I did mention that. Good job, me. And then medium late is, that's the same corner that's earlier, but I'm past it. It's a very easy to tell one. Then this one can overlap with the prior one with medium. So you can actually do this setup for medium, like the very later parts, if you can't quite tell in my medium case or my medium light case. So if you can't tell, just do medium light case. Medium light case looks scarier than what it is. And then the late case is basically the same thing. It's just that you're further up on the thing, that's all. Further up on the ramp. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold up right, because we don't want to fall off. We're going to transition to up and up left again, just like before. And now we're going to specifically go for, which frame is it? It's not the middle of the ramp. I think it's the one right after. Sometimes, however, this one doesn't work, so I do recommend going one more, 2 frames after. And at this point, what we're going to do, we're going to hold down right for the angle change. This is where it gets funny though. We're going to be holding right and A. And magic. Now there was a frame there that usually this one's easy to tell on. I started holding upright, and then that's what allowed me to make it to the safety zone. The later the wind, the higher the chance that you can make it into the load zone. Just saying, but you know, it's not consistent, so. Only if you're dumb, stupid, and absolutely devoid of any other time saves would you ever go for that. That's basically what that's for. Okay, just for the sake of consistency, I guess. That is not right. Oof, that was a very nice win despite how late it took me to get a quick start. And finally, that leaves the last one, which is basically the same thing. In my safe state, it's not even that further up. Really, it's very nearly the same thing. I don't have any extra notes on it, except it's basically the same thing. And I'm here. It's basically the same thing. I don't even know if I need to separate those 2 cases. I just do it just in case. I'm gonna try intentionally not getting this so I can simulate what it looks like. So here I would try to press upright to get an upright input. That way when I target, the camera's gonna go more in that direction, and then I can start holding left more. I don't even know if it matters for that. But if you can see that line there, yeah, I can see it just barely on the screen. I can see it pretty good on my screen. If you can't see it that well, the line that dictates whether it's on the wall or the slope that, or the ledge that you can grab, it is kind of hard to see on the screen, is right here. It's that very slightly darker line than usual. I would do 1 or 2 more frames from this point, and then I would take Goron mask off. Then wait for the next one. And voila. Okay, at this point in the video, I'm going to go over all cases. Wow, almost an hour in, longest part 2 tutorial ever. Starting with early. Okay, so we're about 54:42 in the run. Okay, so this is like if the wind starts early. The wind just started on this frame. Hold up left and A. Then upright. I would hold it right in this case. Excuse me. Excuse me. Hey, sorry about that. I forgot I had to stutter here just to get it closer to the case. Alright, there we go. So about here, when you know it's safe to hold upright, no A upright inputs, then upright A input, then just make sure you stay on this thing until you get over here. I've had so much practice with Goron quick start. I am, why did I take that off? A lot better than I used to be at that trick, that's for sure. A lot more consistent. Alright, here is medium early. This is the one that you can usually just hold straight up for this one. Maybe an up left input for a little bit. Make sure that you're I'm a lot further up because I held up the entire time. I usually hold up left at some point. Usually around that turn. Around that corner. But this is way late. We'll see if it works. So this is a frame after passing through the middle between left and right. The very middle of the ramp. Then I hold right for 2 frames with no A input, then right and A. Okay, that case is maybe free. Dang. I really wanted to try to make it. That is the same for all of them, so I'm not going to do that for the rest of these. I'm just going to try to make it in for kicks and giggles. Alright, here is the medium case. Medium case is, of course, hold up right. Not that long. You want to switch over. Alright, it's hard to see the other side. I'm going to redo this. That sucked. Okay, that's if I were to do it much slower. Wait for being in the middle of the ramp. Specifically the middle of the ramp, it is different from before. You will get varying results otherwise, possibly falling down. Probably falling down otherwise. 2 right inputs without A, then right input with A. And I made it in. Yay! Made it in once. Okay, 2 other cases that are basically the same now. Oop. Okay, so holding upright, then up left. This is a little further than I like to go. Sometimes if you go to this frame, you're this far away from the left edge, you will fall off. Alright, so anyways, down right for 2 frames without A, then right and A for the roll. Okay, just barely made it on for the rest of that. I'm gonna do that again just to show it off. Somewhere here. No, that didn't work well the other time, so I'm gonna go 1 more frame after that one still. Yeah, that was way further out than I like to be. I usually like to be back closer to this corner here whenever I am in the middle or slightly to the left usually. I don't like to be all the way up here. That usually ends up in varying results and sometimes bad results. So yeah, try not to go too far. Try to make sure you're around here when you end up in the spot you want to be for your setup. That's horrible. Okay, camera. That actually worked despite the camera being so wonky. And the wind was so late, I still made it in. And finally, the last case, which is basically the same case. Really beating this one to a dead horse. Beating a dead horse here. Okay, so I'm in the middle about right here. So 1 frame passed. I can't even see the right side of the ledge. The right side of the bridge, the right side of the ramp. There we go. So I'm just going to do it here. 2 down right inputs without A, then right with A. Nice snowball. And we're in. Alright. Literally wrapped up about 10 seconds before an hour. Nice. GG. Good luck, have fun. You can do it. This will probably be a challenging trick to learn at first, but if you keep your wits about you, keep calm, keep collective, then you can do it. Good luck, have fun. Bye.